Chapter 1. Ms. Hart, this marriage certificate is fake. The clerk looked at Estella Hart with a mix of pity and hesitation. According to our system, Mr. Jensen Moore got married to a woman named Emily Blanchard 2 weeks ago. Hearing that her boyfriend of 6 years had secretly married his first love behind her back, Estella wasn't even surprised. All right. Thanks for your help. She slipped the fake marriage certificate into her bag, put on her sunglasses, and turned to leave. Standing outside the Vital Records office, she sent a message to her senior from school, Zoe Gardner. Zoe, I'm going with you to Ainbert to start the business. Zoe seemed busy and didn't reply right away. Estella put her phone back into her pocket, hailed a cab, and gave the driver an address. By the time she got home in the evening, exhaustion weighed heavily on her. Just as she pulled out her keys, she heard the elevator ding behind her. Jensen stepped out, smiling as he asked, "Where'd you go, Esty?" Estella stared at his face, momentarily dazed by how naturally he could still smile at her. "I went to the city hall. Thought I'd take a few pictures to remember the day we registered our marriage. But it turns out, it's just an empty lot now. Any idea why?" As she said that, she watched him closely, looking for even the slightest flicker of guilt. For a split second, his expression stiffened. But then, as if nothing had happened, he regained his usual calm demeanor. "You must have gone to the wrong place. We already have the certificate. We can take photos another time. Anyway, I got you macarons. These are new flavors from your favorite bakery. See if you like them." With that, Jensen handed her a bag and walked straight into the bathroom. Estella lowered her gaze, the corners of her lips curling weakly. "Jensen, there is no another time for us." She silently walked into the study and placed the fake marriage certificate back in the safe. 3 days ago, when they'd gotten the certificate, Jensen had only let her glance at it before locking it away. She'd thought it was because he cherished their marriage. But last night, when she'd gotten up to get some water, she'd accidentally overheard him on the phone on the balcony. "Jensen, are you seriously back with Emily? You pursued her for 3 years, and the second she said yes, she ran off with another guy. She almost ruined you. Don't tell me you still love her." Jensen went quiet for a few seconds before answering slowly, "I married Emily 2 weeks ago. Her parents were forcing her to marry some old man. I couldn't stand watching her suffer." Estella froze on the spot, the cold seeping into her bones. She and the person on the other end of the call both knew this wasn't just about how Jensen couldn't stand watching her suffer. Jensen had never gotten over Emily. For 6 years, Estella thought she'd finally won, that she would spend the rest of her life with the man she loved. But in the end, she realized that Jensen had never loved her. The city hall was fake, and so was their marriage certificate. This entire 6-year relationship had been nothing but a lie. How ridiculous. How utterly pathetic. Since Jensen was already married to Emily, Estella decided there was no point in humiliating herself any further. From now on, she would move forward to a future without him. Chapter 2. Jensen's phone rang from the coffee table. Its custom ringtone was loud and unmistakable in the silent living room. Estella hesitated for a second before walking toward it. But before she could reach the table, a damp figure barreled past her and shoved her aside. Her shin slammed hard against the sharp edge of the table. The intense pain brought tears to Estella's eyes instantly. And yet, the man responsible, Jensen, didn't even notice. He snatched up his phone and disappeared back into the bathroom. Clenching her jaw, Estella limped to the couch. She'd barely sat down when she heard his voice from the bathroom. It was low and anxious, even as Jensen tried hard to sound calm. "Don't be scared. Stay in your room and don't come out. I'm coming right now." A bitter taste filled Estella's mouth. In their 6 years together, Jensen had always been composed and rational. Yet tonight, he was frantic over a single phone call. It was at this moment that Estella realized he wasn't naturally cold, he just didn't love her. Jensen rushed out of the bathroom, his face tense. He walked past her without stopping, only saying one sentence. Something came up at work. Don't wait up. And just like that, he was gone. What he failed to notice was that the woman who'd used to hand him his coat and remind him to come home early didn't even lift her head this time. Estella sat on the couch for a long time. Only when the pain in her leg dulled did she finally stand and head to the bedroom. There, she started packing. The mugs she'd bought for them but Jensen had never used, the rings she'd handcrafted but never gotten to give him, the custom wedding ribbon she designed, and the vows she'd carefully written one by one, she tossed them into a trash bag without hesitation. 2 hours later, half the room was empty. Just as Estella let out a breath, her phone rang. Zoe's excited voice burst through the speaker. Esty. I'm on a business trip abroad and just woke up to this great news. Welcome to the team. I'll be back in a week, and we can head to Ainbert together. But didn't you say you were planning your wedding with your boyfriend? Is he okay with you going to Ainbert? Estella paused. For the past 6 years, Jensen had kept their relationship so low profile that barely anyone knew they were together. It was only 3 days ago, when Zoe had asked if she wanted to join her new studio in Ainbert, that Estella had told her about the upcoming wedding. And now, in just a few days, everything had fallen apart. Her voice was calm as she replied, "It's fine. The wedding's cancelled." At that moment, Jensen stepped into the room and caught those 3 words. His eyes flickered with a trace of panic. What do you mean, the wedding's cancelled? Startled, Estella turned to see him standing behind her. She steadied herself and made up a random excuse. A friend had an emergency, so they called off their wedding. Jensen didn't question it. Oh. By the way, didn't you say on your birthday that you wanted to do a couple's photoshoot? The photographer called today. They have an opening tomorrow. Estella instinctively wanted to refuse. But before she could say a word, Jensen's gaze landed on the now bare dresser. His brows knitted in confusion. Esty, were you cleaning? Why does it feel like half the stuff is gone? Estella nodded casually. Yeah. I wasn't using any of it, so I got rid of it. There's no point keeping things that take up space. For some reason, Jensen felt an odd sense of unease creep into his chest. Chapter 3. Jensen's gaze lingered on the cleared dresser for a long time. Estella swallowed the refusal on the tip of her tongue. She just wanted to leave quietly, without unnecessary complications. So, she said evenly, get some rest. We have the photo shoot tomorrow, don't we? Seeing nothing unusual in her expression, Jensen didn't think much of it. That night, they lay back to back, each lost in their own thoughts. The next morning, as they were leaving, Estella struggled to drag a heavy trash bag downstairs. Jensen took it from her without hesitation and asked, "Why is it so heavy? What's in here?" As he spoke, he reached out to tug the bag open to check what was inside. Instinctively, Estella pressed his arm down. Just a bunch of useless stuff. Right then, the elevator arrived on their floor. The moment passed, and Jensen lost interest. He tossed the bag into the dumpster without a second thought. Watching it disappear, Estella felt a weight lift off her shoulders. At the studio, the staff led them to pick outfits for the shoot. Rows of wedding gowns lined the racks. Just as Estella was about to ask if there were other options, Jensen suddenly stopped in front of one. Try this one, Esty. Didn't you say you liked this style? Estella blinked at the gown, a regal, vintage-style wedding dress. Half a month ago, she'd sent Jensen a picture of a similar design. If this had happened before she'd found out about Emily, she would have been overwhelmed with emotion, touched that he remembered. But now, she felt nothing. She couldn't be bothered to pick something else, so she went along with it. A few minutes later, as the staff adjusted Estella's flowing gown, she smiled and complimented her. Ms. Hart, you and your boyfriend must be so in love. He picked the perfect dress for you. Your photos are going to turn out amazing. As soon as she said that, another staff member entered hesitantly. Mr. Moore said there's an emergency at work. He can't stay for the shoot today. We'll do a solo session for you first, and you can come back another day for the couple's photos. The staff member's smile was forced, and she kept her distance. She was probably bracing herself for an emotional outburst from Estella. After all, scenes like this had played out at the studio before. But to her surprise, Estella only nodded and accepted the news with complete indifference. After the shoot, Estella took a cab home alone. Before she even stepped inside, she heard a woman's soft laughter from the living room. Jensen, I can't believe I get to eat your cooking again after all these years. At the dining table, Jensen peeled a shrimp and placed it naturally onto the woman's plate. Just as he was about to say something, he turned and saw Estella standing at the door. For a few seconds, he looked caught off guard. Then, as if suddenly remembering, he said, "Esty, this is Emily Blanchard. She's going through something right now, so she'll be staying with us for a few days." Sitting across from him, Emily stole a quick glance at Estella before speaking in a soft, delicate voice. "You must be Jensen's girlfriend. I've heard about you. Thanks for having me over. Oh, Jensen made my favorite salt-baked shrimp. Why don't you join us?" As she spoke, she stood up and gave up the seat across from Jensen. Then, she casually took a spot beside him, settling in like she belonged there. Estella had thought Jensen's feelings were one-sided. But looking at them now, they seemed like two sides of the same coin. "You two enjoy," she said calmly. "I'm tired. I'll rest in the bedroom." With that, she turned to leave. But the moment she opened the door, she froze. Chapter 4. A large wedding photo hung on the wall. Emily, dressed in a strapless wedding gown, was pressed closely against Jensen. Their noses nearly touched as they gazed into each other's eyes. They looked every bit like a couple deeply in love. Jensen hurried in from the living room. "Esty, you should rest in the guest room. Emily hasn't been feeling well, and this bedroom gets the best sunlight, so I thought it'd be better for her to stay here." Mid-sentence, his eyes landed on the wedding photo. He froze for a moment before continuing, this was just to appease her family. They were pressuring her to get married. So, their marriage certificate was just a favor, and the wedding photos were just for show. Meeting Estella's cold gaze, Jensen felt a sudden panic rise within him and instinctively reached for her arm. "Don't overthink it, Esty. She stepped away. "Don't touch me." This was the first time Estella had ever shown such resistance toward him in their 6 years together. Jensen's chest tightened. He was about to explain when Emily suddenly rushed in and said in a trembling voice, "Ms. Hart, please don't fight with Jensen. It's my fault. I shouldn't have moved in. I'll leave right now." Jensen immediately stopped her. "This has nothing to do with you." Tears streamed down Emily's face at once. "Jensen, you've already done so much for me. I can't let you upset Ms. Hart because of me. Maybe this is just my fate. Maybe I'm being punished for the mistakes I made in the past. I accept it." Her tear-filled eyes and fragile voice struck Jensen hard. Gently, he reassured her, "Don't worry. As long as I'm here, no one can force you into marriage. And Esty isn't upset over this. You don't have to go anywhere. Just stay." Watching the scene before her, Estella let out a soft chuckle. "Why should I be upset? After all, this is your home now." With that, she turned and walked out. Emily let out a delicate sob. "Is Ms. Hart angry?" This time, Jensen didn't answer. Estella's words sent shockwaves through his mind. Without thinking, he rushed after her and grabbed her wrist. "What do you mean by that? What do you mean this is her home now? Emily's being forced into marriage and is being harassed by some stranger. I'm just trying to help her." You're a woman too. Can't you have a little empathy? Do you really have to throw a jealous tantrum at a time like this? Suddenly, the sound of shattering glass echoed from the bedroom. Jensen's expression paled instantly. He shoved Estella aside and rushed back inside. Emily. What are you doing? His voice was filled with panic. Emily was kneeling on the floor, and there was a long gash trailing down her wrist. Tears streamed down her pale face. Just leave me alone. No one in this world cares about me. If my death can make Ms. Hart happy, then at least I'll have done something right. Jensen snatched the shard from her hand and pressed hard against her wound to stop the bleeding. Then, he whipped around to glare at Estella. Estella. Are you satisfied now? Do you feel no guilt at all seeing this? No wonder people call you heartless. Even when your own father died, you didn't shed a single tear. How could someone as cold and selfish as you ever care about another person's life? His words slammed into Estella like a hammer. Her hands trembled, and her body went cold. Her childhood had been filled with the stench of alcohol and the bruises left by a drunken father. So, when he'd died unexpectedly, she hadn't cried. Not once. Her relatives had called her ungrateful, a heartless wretch. For years, those words had been a buried wound, reopening at every mention. Later, when Jensen had found out, he'd spent a long time comforting her until she'd finally let it go. But now, he was the one driving the blade back in. Whatever love Estella had left for him slowly drained away at this moment. Jensen, I never said she couldn't stay, and I never threw a tantrum. The only reason I avoided you is because I have a severe allergy to seafood. Only then did Jensen notice the angry red rash spreading across her wrist right where he'd grabbed her. As he met Estella's reddened eyes and recalled his own words, a pang of guilt swept through him. Esty, 1. Seeing this, Emily clenched her teeth and struggled to get up again. Don't stop me, Jensen. Just let me die. As she thrashed about, more blood oozed from her wound. Jensen no longer cared to comfort Estella. He scooped Emily up and rushed out. I won't let anything happen to you. Let's go to the hospital right now. Estella stood there, unmoving, as their figures disappeared. Chapter 5. The bedroom floor was a mess. After taking her allergy medicine, Estella gathered her things and moved into the guest room. As she passed by the shattered glass on the floor, she paused, then bent down to pick up a photo. It was the only picture she and Jensen had together, the last one, too. The last time she'd come across it when she'd been packing, she hadn't decided what to do with it yet. It seemed like Emily had made the choice for her. Estella's lips curled into a faint smirk. She tore the picture into pieces and tossed them into the trash. That night, Jensen didn't come home. The next day at 5 a.m., Estella was woken up by noises from the kitchen. Still groggy, she walked out to find Jensen cooking. When he saw her, a flicker of guilt crossed his face. Did I wake you? Emily didn't eat much last night, so I'm making her some seafood congee. You should have a bowl too. Estella stared at the pot of simmering congee. Even after all these years apart, Jensen still remembered Emily's likes and dislikes down to the smallest details. Meanwhile, she'd lived with him for 6 years. Just yesterday, she'd reminded him about her severe seafood allergy. Yet, he hadn't even registered it. In fact, she hadn't even known he could cook until last night. Sometimes, the difference between love and indifference was painfully clear. I'm not hungry, Estella said flatly. No need to save any for me. With that, she turned to head back to her room. Suddenly, Jensen spoke up. Esty, about last night. I was just panicked when I saw Emily hurt. I said some things I didn't mean. Don't take it to heart, okay? Estella nodded calmly. I understand. It was an emergency. I don't blame you. Jensen hadn't expected her to let it go so easily. As he watched her lowered gaze, a pang of guilt twisted inside him. We haven't gone on a date in a while, he said. Once Emily's situation is settled, let's go on a trip and have a proper break. Estella made a hum of agreement. It didn't matter. She'd be gone in a few days. Whether she agreed or not made no difference. 3 days later, after a shopping trip with a friend, Estella came home to find that Jensen and Emily were back. The two of them were curled up on the couch, flipping through an old photo album. When Emily spotted her, her eyes lit up. "Miss Hart, you're back. Jensen and I were just looking at old photos. Our friends used to say we looked alike, like a married couple. I always thought they were joking, but when we took our wedding photos the other day, even the photographer said the same thing. What do you think? Do we really look alike?" The air in the room seemed to freeze for a second. Emily's words were an open provocation, but Estella simply nodded, unfazed. "I think they're right. You two really do." Before she could finish, Jensen abruptly cut her off, saying, "We have a class reunion tonight. Come with us, Esty." Estella almost laughed. So he thought she was upset, and this was his way of making it up to her. The car ride was silent. They were all lost in their own thoughts. At the hotel, Emily stuck close to Jensen's side, chatting animatedly about their school days. At one point, she even reached out and wrapped her hand around his arm. Estella said nothing. She simply followed a few steps behind them. As soon as they entered the private room, a few old classmates immediately crowded around them. "What's going on here?" someone asked, their eyes darting between Jensen and Emily. "Wow, after all these years, you two still ended up together, huh?" Emily didn't explain. She just blushed and smiled shyly. Just then, someone finally noticed Estella standing at the door. "Who's that?" Chapter 6. Jensen stiffened, as if he'd just remembered Estella was there. He opened his mouth to explain. But before he could, Estella spoke in a calm voice, "I'm a friend of theirs." As she said that, Jensen glanced at her with a complicated expression. But with Emily right beside him, he ultimately chose to stay silent. The others found her response a little odd, but no one pressed the issue. Instead, they ushered her in to take a seat. Since they were old friends catching up after years apart, there was no end to the conversation. They talked about everything and anything. Jensen chatted along while thoughtfully picking out dishes for Emily, even taking the time to remove the cilantro she didn't like. Meanwhile, Estella sat quietly, playing her role as a friend. Halfway through the dinner, she stepped out to use the restroom. On her way back, just as she reached the private room's door, she overheard someone inside ask, "Be honest, Jensen. After all these years that Emily was abroad, did you ever fall for anyone else?" The room fell silent. Everyone was waiting for his answer. Sitting right next to him, Emily was the first to speak to smooth things over. "All right, stop asking that kind of question. I've been gone for so many years. It would be completely normal if he fell for someone else." Though her words seemed understanding, her eyes glistened with unshed tears. The smile on her face looked forced as well. Jensen's chest tightened at the sight. After a sigh, he lowered his voice and reassured her, "No. I never fell for anyone else." The moment he said it, Emily's face broke into a teary smile, and she shyly leaned into his embrace. The room erupted into cheers and teasing laughter. Estella had no interest in spoiling their moment. She simply left and took a cab home on her own. A few hours later, Jensen came back, carrying a very drunk Emily in his arms. As he carefully laid her on the bed, she looped her delicate arms lazily around his neck. "Don't go, Jensen. If I hadn't been so stubborn and gone abroad back then, Estella never would have come between us. I'm the one who signed the marriage certificate and took wedding photos with you. We're the real couple, aren't we? Jensen, please, don't leave me." Jensen froze at those words. Emily took the opportunity to pull him closer and kiss him. As soon as Estella pushed open the bedroom door, she was met with this intimate scene. She froze for a moment, then turned and walked out. Most people would feel devastated watching their boyfriend kiss another woman. But maybe because she'd already seen this coming, it didn't even hurt that much. As Jensen watched Estella's retreating figure, a wave of panic surged through him like never before. He shoved Emily aside and rushed after Estella. Let me explain, Esty. I get it, she interrupted. Emily's drunk. You should go take care of her. I'm not upset. Her eyes were steady and sincere. That only made Jensen feel even more unsettled. A strange fear crept into his chest, as if something was slipping out of his grasp. His voice came out rough. Why aren't you angry? Chapter 7. Jensen continued, You told everyone at the reunion that we were just friends. You didn't react when Emily kissed me. You even told me to take care of her. Esty, I'm your boyfriend. Why are you pushing me towards someone else? Estella stayed silent for a few seconds. She was about to lay everything out in the open when a sudden scream erupted from the bedroom. Jensen's expression paled instantly. Without hesitation, he pushed the door open and rushed inside. Emily, who'd been curled up in bed just moments ago, ran over barefoot. She stumbled as she threw herself into his arms. That psycho came to get me, Jensen. I'm so scared. Don't leave me alone. Please, don't go. As soon as she said that, Jensen scooped her up and said in a gentle voice, It's okay. I'm here. No one will hurt you. I'll never leave you. Leaning against Jensen's shoulder, Emily cast a defiant glance at Estella, showing no trace of her earlier drunkenness. This is the answer, Jensen, Estella thought. She'd never pushed him toward Emily. He'd chosen her. Again and again. Jensen spent the entire night by Emily's side. Estella didn't care anyway. Zoe had wrapped up her work early and would be flying back in 2 days to visit her. That news alone lifted Estella's mood. The next morning, as she sat down for breakfast, she noticed Jensen had left his phone on the dining table. The screen was filled with work messages. After a moment of hesitation, she picked it up and walked to the master bedroom. Just as she was about to knock, Emily pushed the door open. Ms. Hart, Jensen was up all night taking care of me. He's still asleep. Maybe you shouldn't disturb him. As she spoke, she tugged at her collar, revealing faint red marks along her neck. Estella's expression remained calm as she handed the phone to her. Okay. Just make sure he gets this. She turned to leave, but Emily grabbed her wrist. God, how shameless can you be? Jensen never loved you. Let me spell it out for you. We didn't just take wedding photos. We're legally married. I'm his wife in every sense of the word. So, get the hell out of our home. Just then, a noise came from inside the room. Emily's expression shifted in an instant, and she let out a frightened cry. Ms. Hart, I'll move out right away. Please, don't be mad. Then, with a dramatic gasp, she slammed her back against the door and slid helplessly to the floor. The next second, Jensen stormed out. When he saw Emily clutching her waist in pain, his face darkened with fury. What the hell are you doing, Estella? You're the one who told me to take care of her. I actually thought you were mature about this. And now you pull some underhanded stunt behind my back. Estella's expression turned cold. I didn't hit her, and I didn't force her to leave. If you don't believe me, check the security cameras. For a split second, something flickered in Emily's eyes. She quickly interjected, Don't blame Ms. Hart, Jensen. It was my fault. I just slipped. She sounded as if she was trying to smooth things over, but paired with her fragile demeanor, it only made her look even more pitiful. Jensen's heart twisted at the sight. He gently lifted her into his arms. It's okay. You don't have to cover for her. Then, he turned to Estella. Estella, you may be my girlfriend, but if you ever hurt Emily again, don't blame me for what happens next. With that, he carried Emily back inside and shut the door behind him. Estella took a deep breath to push down the anger boiling inside her. It didn't matter what she said. Jensen wouldn't believe her anyway. So why bother? She collected herself, left the house, and spent the entire day out with a friend. By the time evening rolled around, she finally took a cab home. Standing at her doorstep, she dug through her bag for her keys. Out of the corner of her eye, she spotted a shadow. A chill shot down her spine. She turned to run on instinct. But in the next second, a hand yanked her back by the hair, dragging her forcefully. Feeling the cold blade against her neck, Estella froze. She forced herself to suppress the fear rising within her. I have money in my bag. Take whatever you want. Just don't hurt me. But the man just pulled out her phone and made a video call. Chapter 8. The phone rang several times. Just as it was about to disconnect, someone finally picked up. Jensen, bring Emily back immediately. If I don't see her in 15 minutes, you can forget about ever seeing your girlfriend again. Jensen's face drained of color the moment he saw the dagger pressed against Estella's neck. Don't hurt her. Where are you? I'll come to you right now. Emily, Mike abducted Esty. Tell him not to hurt her. The screen wobbled before Emily's face appeared. Mike. Mike Conway. Mike's gaze locked onto her. It's me, Emily. You promised you'd marry me. I gave up everything for you. You can't just leave me. His voice grew more agitated with every word. The blade pressed deeper, leaving a thin cut on Estella's neck. She couldn't help but let out a gasp of pain. Jensen's heart skipped a beat at the sight. Don't touch her. Don't be scared, Esty. Don't touch her. Don't be scared, Esty. I'm coming to save you. When Estella saw the raw panic on his face, her eyes burned with unshed tears. She bit her lip hard, refusing to cry. But the next words out of Emily's mouth made her freeze. Don't panic, Jensen. He's not Mike. Miss Hart, there's nothing between Jensen and me. You don't have to stage something this dramatic just to test his feelings. The moment she said that, Jensen frowned, and a flicker of doubt crossed his face. A sinking feeling hit Estella's chest. I'm not acting, Jensen. Please believe me. Believe me just this once. With her life on the line, she paid no mind to the blade at her throat. She could only plead with Jensen in a trembling voice. On the other end, Emily let out a helpless sigh. Don't push Jensen like this. Will you finally stop with these games if I leave? Jensen's expression turned cold at those words. Estella, I don't have time for your tricks. Even if you really were abducted, I still wouldn't let Emily leave. With that, he hung up without hesitation. Estella stared blankly at the screen. She felt nothing but cold. Behind her, Mike's voice rang out, filled with anger. Blame yourself for being Jensen's girlfriend. Pick your man more wisely in your next life. When Estella opened her eyes again, she was lying in a hospital bed. Jensen sat by her side, his expression filled with worry. Esty, you're awake. Are you in pain? Do you feel okay? Her mind was a mess. However, she hadn't forgotten how Jensen had believed Emily over her and how he'd abandoned her to fend for herself. If the neighbors hadn't intervened, she would have died that night. I'm sorry. It was all my fault. I should have trusted you. Please, don't be mad, okay? I didn't know it was really Mike. I've never met him. Estella pulled her hand away as she cut him off expressionlessly. Did Emily not recognize Mike either? Jensen stiffened, his voice strained as he tried to explain. It was dark. She just didn't realize it at first. But when she found out it was really Mike, she was devastated. She cried for a long time. Anyway, Mike's been arrested now. Don't blame Emily. Please. You've always been the kindest person I know. Estella had almost died. Emily had just shed a few tears. And now Jensen was here, asking Estella to forgive her. At that moment, a nurse rushed in. Mr. Moore, Ms. Blanchard is awake. She's crying and asking for you. This time, Jensen didn't immediately leave. He looked at Estella, waiting for her response. Estella curled her lips into a slight smile. Go ahead. I'm tired. I want to rest. After saying that, she turned away and closed her eyes. Thinking she'd agreed to forgive Emily, Jensen gently pulled the blanket over her. I'll check on her and be right back. With that, he turned and left with the nurse in a hurry. Minutes later, Estella checked herself out of the hospital. She hailed a cab and left. On the way home, she received a photo from Emily. Jensen was kneeling before her, carefully holding her ankle as he helped her put on her shoes. Seeing the typing indicator on the screen, Estella immediately blocked her. Soreen, Estella immediately blocked her. When she got home, she headed straight for the study. She pulled the fake marriage certificate from the safe, tore it to shreds, and tossed it into the trash can without a moment's hesitation. Then, she grabbed her suitcase and headed straight for the airport. From this moment on, Jensen Moore was nothing but a part of her past. Chapter 9. Meanwhile, in the ward, Jensen felt a strange unease gnaw at him as he stared out at the darkening sky. When Emily noticed how distracted he was, her gaze dimmed slightly. Her eyes turned red as she spoke in a pitiful voice, Jensen, can you stay with me tonight? I'm really scared. Please don't leave me alone. With that, she let out a soft sob, looking delicate and vulnerable. Seeing Emily in tears, Jensen instinctively wanted to agree. But just as the words reached his lips, an image of Estella flashed through his mind, her pale face and her teary yet stubborn eyes as she endured the terror of being held hostage. For some reason, his chest tightened, and a sharp pain pricked at his heart. Frowning, he turned Emily down. Mike's been arrested. You don't have to worry about him anymore. Esty went through a terrible ordeal. I need to be with her. It's getting late, you should rest. I'll visit you tomorrow. The moment he finished speaking, Emily's sobs abruptly stopped. She grabbed his arm. Meeting his confused gaze, she forced a smile. I'll come with you. Ms. Hart's abduction was partly my fault. I should apologize to her in person. Emily didn't know why his attitude had suddenly shifted, but one thing was certain. She couldn't let him be alone with Estella. Jensen didn't think much of it and agreed without hesitation. For some reason, an unshakable sense of unease had been gnawing at him since earlier. All he wanted now was to see Estella immediately. He strode quickly down the hallway toward her ward. Yen before he reached the door, he began speaking, a smile on his face. I'm back, Esty. Do you feel like eating anything? I can go get you. The moment he saw the empty room, the smile froze on his lips. Esty. Estella. He burst into the ward in disbelief while calling Estella's name anxiously. Drawn by the commotion, the nurse from the neighboring room quickly rushed over. Ms. Hart was discharged this afternoon. Please lower your voice. You're disturbing other patients. The words sent a wave of quiet satisfaction through Emily, though she quickly masked it with a pitiful expression. Ms. Hart must still be upset with me. Jensen, I swear, I didn't mean to mistake Mike for someone else. In the past, Jensen would have immediately comforted Emily and reassured her that it wasn't her fault. He might have even scolded Estella for being too petty. But this time, he said nothing. His expression remained cold as he turned and walked straight out. Estella was angry. Of course, she was angry. She'd just gone through a terrifying experience, and instead of staying by her side, he'd left her alone. This time, he was in the wrong. He needed to apologize to her and explain everything properly. Left behind, Emily froze for a moment before scrambling after Jensen and grabbing his arm in a panic. Where are you going, Jensen? Ms. Hart is mad right now. She probably just wants some time alone. You shouldn't bother her. Let's go see her together tomorrow. Chapter 10. Before Emily even finished speaking, Jensen yanked his arm free. I'm going to find Esty. Stop getting in my way. Once you're discharged, move back to your house and find a time to finalize the divorce. Without another word, he bolted out of the hospital and hailed a cab straight to their home. The entire ride, he frantically dialed Estella's number. But every call was met with the same cold, robotic response. The number you've dialed is unavailable. He still clung to a sliver of hope in his heart, thinking maybe her phone had just died, so she couldn't pick up his calls. As long as he made it home, he would see the one he longed for. Jensen kept urging the driver to go faster. But when he finally pushed open the door, the sight before him sent a chill down his spine. The living room, once warm and familiar, now felt empty. The couch was missing her favorite throw blanket and the pillow she always hugged. The ceramic mug she used every morning was gone. The display shelf that had once held her cherished collection of figurines was now barren. Everything that belonged to Estella was gone. Jensen staggered to the cabinet, his hands trembling as he yanked it open. This was where Estella had kept their wedding preparations. The custom wedding ribbon she designed and the wedding vows she'd carefully written were each a testament to what the wedding had meant to her. Now, it was all gone. Refusing to give up, Jensen tore through the house. Maybe Estella had just moved her things somewhere else. But the more he searched, the more frantic he became. In just a few days, every trace of her had been wiped away. In their place, Emily's belongings were everywhere. Then, he opened the master bedroom door. The moment he saw the massive wedding photo above the bed, his chest tightened so painfully that he could hardly breathe. No. This wasn't how it was supposed to be. This was supposed to be his and Estella's home. For the first time, he truly understood what Estella must have felt when she'd seen that picture. But now it was too late. Estella was gone. She didn't want him anymore. Violent rage seized him. He lunged forward, yanked the photo off the wall, and slammed it to the ground. His fists crashed down onto the image of himself embracing another woman. Even as shards of glass tore into his knuckles, he didn't stop. He felt as if breaking it to pieces could somehow erase the past and undo his mistakes. It wasn't until the wedding photo was nothing but a mangled mess that he finally stopped. He stared at the chaos around him before trudging toward the living room. As he passed the trash can, his steps faltered. With trembling hands, he picked up a few torn fragments of paper. The moment he saw the words, "marriage certificate," on them, his mind went blank. A deafening buzz drowned out everything else. Chapter 11. Estella knew the marriage certificate was fake. Jensen's breath came faster. How had she found out? Then, like a lightning bolt, he recalled the day she'd asked about the city hall. Had she known all along? More details surfaced in his mind, Estella saying, the wedding's cancelled, her growing indifference, the way she'd quietly begun pushing him toward Emily. Jensen fell to his knees, his face twisted in despair. So she'd been planning to leave him a week ago, yet he'd been completely oblivious. He'd been blind to his last chance to make things right. But he'd only wanted to help Emily. That was all. He'd never once thought of leaving Estella. So how could she be so ruthless, so resolute in walking away? At the very least, she should have given him a chance to explain. Jensen had no other choice but to dial her number over and over again. Even as blood smeared the screen, he refused to give up and gripped the phone numbly. At Ainbert Airport, the moment Estella got off the plane, she saw hundreds of missed calls. Only then did she realize that she'd forgotten to block Jensen. But she was confused. Shouldn't Jensen be with the woman he loved? What was this sudden outburst for? Before she could dwell on it, her phone rang again. Her fingers trembled as she answered. The next second, Jensen's hoarse voice came through the receiver. "Where are you, Esty? I'll come find you. Let's talk." Estella's brows knitted together. "There's nothing to talk about, Jensen." "There's nothing to talk about, Jensen." The moment you chose Emily, we were done. Don't call me again. Let's at least leave each other with some dignity. At her words, something inside Jensen finally snapped. His eyes burned red as he roared, Estella Hart. We've been together for 6 years. Do you really have no trust in me at all? Not even enough to let me explain. Stunned by the sheer audacity of his accusation, Estella let out a laugh. Explain. You mean you want to explain why you married Emily and then had the audacity to hand me a fake marriage certificate? Jensen, where do you get the nerve to demand trust from me? Jensen's face grew darker with each word, and by the time Estella finished, it was flushed a deep red. Esty, I only did those things to help her. It's always been you, I swear. I've only ever loved you. Please, give me another chance. We're about to get married. Don't walk away now. Chapter 12. Estella had no intention of getting tangled up with Jensen any longer, so she decided to lay it all out once and for all. Jensen, I don't care who you love now or who you're trying to help. What I do know is that I don't love you anymore. And I'm sure as hell not marrying a divorced man. So do me a favor and stop bothering me. With that, she hung up, ignoring Jensen's desperate pleas on the other end of the line. Without hesitation, she blocked his number. Zoe, who'd been standing beside her, gave her a thumbs up. That's my girl. Nice and clean. That's exactly how you handle a scumbag. By the way, Esty, I need to swing by the office for a bit. Rowan's coming to pick you up and take you to my place. If you need anything, just tell him. At the mention of that name, Estella's expression shifted. She tensed and turned to Zoe warily. Rowan. Are you talking about Rowan Olsen? Why are you back with him again, Zoe? Oblivious to the alarm in Estella's voice, Zoe answered casually, I've been studying abroad all this time, and I just opened a studio in Ainbert. Since Rowan is doing well here, it would be a waste not to take advantage of his resources. Estella frowned, her unease growing. Zoe. Please don't fall for his tricks again. He's not right for you. Back then, he. A flicker of embarrassment and frustration crossed Estella's face. She clenched her teeth and forced herself to continue. He confessed to me once, but I didn't want to affect your exam, so I planned to tell you after it was over. Then, I heard you two had broken up, so I figured it didn't matter anymore. But he's not a good guy, Zoe. You need to stay away from him. Zoe stood frozen, her eyes wide in shock. What? Rowan was into you back then? Something crossed her mind, and her expression suddenly turned uneasy. Actually, Rowan's not that bad. I think you might have misunderstood. That was it. This was the perfect example of love is blind. Utterly exasperated, Estella cut her off. Are you serious, Zoe? You were just telling me to stay away from scumbags, and now look at you. You deserve someone better. Don't waste your time and energy on him. Zoe scratched her cheek, letting out a sheepish laugh. Esty, have you ever considered the possibility that Rowan is my brother? You know, as in biological brother. Before Estella could process that, a deep voice sounded from behind her. It's been a long time, Estella. It had been years since she'd last seen Rowan. He looked even hotter now, and his demeanor was more composed. Estella sat stiffly in the passenger seat, clutching a massive bouquet of tulips while staring out the window in awkward silence. 5 minutes ago, she'd finally learned the truth. Rowan and Zoe were fraternal twins. Their parents had divorced when they were young, each raising one child and later remarrying. Though the two hadn't grown up in the same household, they'd always kept in touch and even attended the same college. Because of their complicated family situation, not many people knew they were actually siblings. And so, Estella had spent years assuming they were a couple. The second the truth came out, she'd wanted the ground to swallow her whole right then and there. If she'd confessed to someone only to be yelled at, blocked, and ignored before she'd even had a chance to explain, she'd probably hold a lifelong grudge against that person. Yet, completely unaware of the chaos in Estella's head, Zoe had casually left her alone with Rowan before making a quick exit. Estella stared blankly out at the passing streetlights. How did you hurt your neck? Rowan's voice pulled her back to reality. Estella paused for a moment before reaching up to touch the scabbed, over wound. It's just a scratch, she mumbled vaguely. She had no interest in bringing up the abduction, and Rowan was sharp enough not to press. Once he confirmed she'd seen a doctor, he let the topic drop. Estella quietly exhaled in relief. When they arrived at Zoe's place, Rowan knelt down naturally to pull out a pair of slippers for her. A brand new pair of pink bunny slippers sat neatly at her feet. These are new. If you don't like them, I'll get you something else. Her ears burned as she muttered a quick thanks and slipped them on. Rowan handed her a glass of water and gave her a quick tour of the apartment. Perhaps he noticed her unease because a hint of disappointment flickered in his eyes. He said, "It's getting late. Get some rest. If you need anything, I'll take you shopping tomorrow." Watching Rowan's retreating figure, Estella took a deep breath and mustered the courage to call out to him. Rowan. Chapter 13. Estella pressed her lips together before saying seriously, "I'm sorry. I misunderstood you back then, and I even lashed out at you without knowing the full story." Her voice grew softer with every word, and her face burned with embarrassment. But the next moment, Rowan's words left her completely stunned. "Now that you know it was all a misunderstanding, can I have a chance to pursue you?" His intense gaze sent a shiver through her heart. She'd never imagined that Rowan would still have feelings for her after all these years. After all, Jensen had been with her for 6 years, yet he'd never truly let go of Emily. But she'd just ended a failed relationship. She wasn't ready to jump into another one so soon. She hesitated for a moment before voicing her thoughts honestly. "I'm sorry. I'm not looking to start a new relationship right now." Rowan didn't back down. "After you rejected me back then, I wanted to explain everything, but you blocked me. At that time, my family was going through some issues, and by the time I dealt with them, I heard you already had a boyfriend. So, all I could do was wish you well. But Esty, I never forgot you. Not for a single day in these 6 years. Can you at least consider giving me a chance?" Meanwhile, in Strensted, Jensen hadn't had a single good night's sleep ever since Estella had blocked his number. He'd searched everywhere he could think of, but there was no trace of her. Unable to face an empty home without her and accept that she was truly gone, Jensen booked a hotel room, trying to escape reality. Yet no matter what he did, sleep eluded him. Only drowning himself in alcohol every night gave him even the slightest chance of falling asleep. That evening, he carried a large bag of liquor back to his hotel room as usual. Just as he stepped inside, he got a call from a friend. "Jensen, the wedding dress you ordered 2 weeks ago is being delivered to your place." Only then did Jensen remember that he and Estella had visited a bridal shop together 2 weeks ago. Back then, he'd just learned about Emily's situation, and all his attention had been on her. He hadn't even taken a proper look at Estella in the wedding dress before leaving her behind in a hurry. A wave of bitterness and regret surged in his heart. He didn't regret helping Emily. He just regretted neglecting Estella. If only he'd cared for her a little more, maybe she wouldn't have left so decisively. But there were no ifs in life. Jensen's voice was hoarse as he said, "Okay. Wait for me at the door. I'll be right there." With that, he turned and headed for the door. "There's no rush. Your wife's home. She already signed for it." Jensen's entire body went stiff. The bag of liquor slipped from his grasp, and bottles shattered on the floor. What did you just say? Who signed for it?" His friend, startled by his sudden change in tone, laughed. "Why are you so worked up? Who else could it be?" Your wife, of course. Unless there's another woman living in your house. Before he even finished speaking, Jensen had already hung up. Jensen ran to the street and flagged down a cab, heading straight home. His heart pounded wildly, his mind racing. There was only one thought consuming him: Estella was back. She'd forgiven him. After all, they had 6 years of history together, and they'd been about to get married. There was no way she could just walk away so easily. Besides, he'd never actually cheated. Estella had just been angry. Once she calmed down, everything would be fine. Now that she'd returned and Emily was no longer an issue, their wedding could go on as planned. They would never be apart again. His anxious heart finally settled at the thought. The cab sped through the streets. When they reached his apartment complex, Jensen didn't bother waiting for the elevator. He took the stairs, racing up to the 8th floor. After opening the door, he rushed inside. The moment he saw the beautiful figure standing there in a wedding dress, he could no longer hold back the longing that had been tearing at him. Striding forward, he pulled her into his arms. You're finally back. I know I messed up. I'll make it up to you, I promise. Just don't leave me again, okay? His voice trembled, and before he knew it, tears streamed down his face. Chapter 14. Wrapped in Jensen's tight embrace, Emily felt the warm teardrops on her shoulders. She finally relaxed after having been gripped by a sense of unease for the last few days. Ever since the last time they'd seen each other at the hospital, Jensen hadn't visited Emily for days. He hadn't even replied to her messages. In all the time she'd known Jensen, he'd never done such a thing before. That was why she'd come over today. She wanted to find out what had happened. Yet, as soon as she'd entered the house, she'd noticed that Estella's belongings were missing. Before she could get excited about it, someone had delivered a wedding dress to the house and even addressed her as Mrs. Moore. All of these signs pointed to one outcome: Estella and Jensen had broken up. As for the wedding photo that was torn apart, Emily assumed Estella had probably been so mad that she'd destroyed it out of frustration before she'd left. Anyhow, none of that mattered now. Emily thought Jensen's current reaction was enough to prove how much he loved her. They could always take more wedding photos that were much more beautiful than the previous ones in the days to come. Emily seemed extremely moved as she turned around and hugged Jensen back. Have you finally come to your senses? You refused to acknowledge your true feelings and even said those things to drive me away when you actually loved me. For days, I've been so sad and heartbroken. HMPH. I won't forgive you so easily unless you try your best to make it up to me. Emily lifted her chin haughtily. She could barely conceal the look of delight in her eyes. On the other hand, Jensen finally realized that the woman he was holding wasn't Estella. He froze, rooted to the spot. There was a baffled look on his face. He shoved Emily away and yelled furiously, "Who gave you the permission to wear this wedding dress?" Emily tripped over the hem of the skirt and fell heavily onto the floor. The corners of her eyes reddened from the pain. Jensen, what was that for? Didn't you prepare this dress for our wedding? What's wrong with me trying it on before the wedding? Tears rolled down her cheeks. Jensen tried to suppress his anger. He muttered through clenched teeth, "Take it off now. It isn't for you." Emily was feeling dejected because of the fall and how hard Jensen had pushed her. Upon hearing his words, she snapped, "If it isn't for me, who is it for? Were you thinking of giving it to Estella? You and I are officially married. There's no way she'll marry you now." Jensen's face went pale as her words hit home. "Emily, I told you from the beginning that I was only trying to help by marrying you. I don't have any special feelings for you. Estella is my girlfriend. She's the only one I'll marry." Emily dug her nails into her palm. Her mouth turned up in an awkward smile. "I don't believe you. Have you forgotten, Jensen? During our high school gathering, you said that I was the only person you'd ever loved and that you'd always protect me. You didn't reject me when I kissed you that night, and you even watched over me for an entire night. The color gradually drained from Jensen's face as he listened. It finally hit him that he'd done a lot of hurtful things to Estella. In the beginning, he'd simply intended to help Emily. Yet, at some point, he'd gotten engrossed in the feeling of being relied on. Moreover, that person was Emily, who'd once rejected him and played with his feelings. All of that had given him an inexplicable sense of satisfaction. So, he'd gone along with Emily's requests when she'd wanted to get married and take wedding photos together. He'd even let her move into his house. Emily ignored the pain and pushed herself up from the floor. She treaded toward Jensen slowly. Stop lying to yourself. Take a good look at me. There's no way you're not in love with me. Emily stood on tiptoes and tried to kiss him. Just then, someone pounded hard on the door. Chapter 15. Jensen pushed Emily away forcefully. When he opened the door, a couple barged into the room, along with 2 other men. Where's Emily Blanchard? Hand over that wretched thing right now. The woman leading the group spotted Emily, who was in a wedding dress. She lunged forward and grabbed Emily by her hair. We've finally caught you. You're not getting away with it so easily after what you've done to my son. Then, she started dragging Emily toward the front door. Emily went white as a sheet. She struggled frantically as she tried to squirm free from the woman's grip. Let me go. Jensen, help me. Hurry and pull this crazy woman away. Ensign snapped out of his reverie when he heard Emily's voice. He rushed forward and pulled her away from the woman. Then, he shielded her from the others with his body. Who are you people? Get out of my house this instant. Otherwise, I'm calling the cops. The woman, Rachel Anderson, cast him a sideways glance and said monotonously, Mike Conway is my son. I came here for this wretched woman today. What we do with her is none of your business. Jensen burned with rage after hearing that. Even though he no longer liked Emily, he couldn't possibly just stand by and watch others beat her up. Moreover, Mike had held Estella hostage and harmed her before. This time, his parents had brazenly shown up at Jensen's place and tried to take someone away. Yet, before Jensen could say anything, Rachel's subsequent remarks made him freeze. Mike was already planning to get married. However, this bitch got between him and his then-girlfriend, who would have been the best daughter-in-law we could ever ask for. Yet, this wretched woman snuck away after spending all of my son's savings. Mike only resorted to doing those unlawful things because of what she did to him. Before Rachel could finish talking, Emily grabbed Jensen's sleeve and sobbed miserably. That's not true. Don't listen to her. It was her son who wouldn't stop harassing me. Jensen didn't blindly take Emily's side this time. He gazed at Rachel with a conflicted look in his eyes. Do you have any proof to support your claims? Rachel flung a stack of photos at Jensen's head. The photographs, sharp edges left several cuts on his face. You want proof? Take a good look at those photos. Isn't the woman in the photos that filthy wench behind you? In the photos, Emily didn't appear as sad or pitiful as she'd been recently. Instead, she was smiling brightly in each photo, which showed her glued to Mike's side, looking all chummy. The 2 of them even looked overly intimate in some of the photos. Looking at the photos, it was obvious that Mike and Emily's relationship was nothing like how the latter had described it. Emily had insisted that Mike was harassing her. Rachel snorted as she took in Jensen's pale face. Do you see it now? Even her parents are aware of this. They said that she should find a way to return the money since she was the one who took it. So, are you planning to pay off her debts for her? It turned out Emily's parents hadn't forced her to marry Mike, and Mike wasn't trying to harass her for no reason. It finally dawned on Jensen how gravely mistaken he'd been. Emily, whom he'd thought was having a hard time, was actually the person who'd ruined someone else's relationship. Yet, Jensen had hurt the woman he should have loved and cherished the most for an awful person like Emily instead. It made him wonder if he and Mike were that different. No. We're different. From the beginning until now, the person that I've loved is Estella. I was simply tricked by Emily. Jensen thought. Chapter 16. Jensen's face was expressionless as he looked at Emily, who hid behind him and cried miserably. I only have one question. Did you really not recognize Mike that time? Emily paused for a split second. There was a flash of panic in her eyes. However, she quickly regained her composure. It was too dark back then, so I really didn't recognize him. Jensen, you have to believe me. Why would I do anything that might put Estella in danger? Can you help me again this time? I'll explain everything to you, and we can finally be together. Before she could finish, Jensen threw back his arm and slapped Emily forcefully with the back of his hand. He shouted furiously, Emily Blanchard. You still won't admit to your mistakes even now, and you're still trying to lie to me. Jensen used his full strength when he slapped Emily. She yelped in pain as she cocked her forehead on a cabinet. Blood oozed from the wound on her forehead instantly. Emily screamed in disbelief when she saw the bloodstains on her hands. Jensen Moore, how dare you hit me? Jensen had a frigid look on his face. You almost got Esty killed. I would have hit you even harder if I could. All along, Jensen had always been gentle and attentive to Emily. Yet, he'd hit her because of Estella this time. Emily was so infuriated that she lost her sense of judgment at that moment. So what if I did it on purpose? The two of us are married. I'm your legal spouse. So why didn't you kick that woman out of the house? It was all that useless Mike's fault for not getting rid of Estella that time. The image of Estella and the look of despair in her eyes when she'd been held hostage flashed through Jensen's mind. His heart ached terribly. Jensen's expression hardened. He said to Rachel, take her with you. Her issues are none of my concern from now on. His top priority was to find out Estella's whereabouts. As for Emily, handing her over to Mike's parents would only mean bad news for her. Meanwhile, Rachel's eyes lit up. She seized hold of Emily's arm and started dragging her toward the door again. Emily's face grew pale when she realized Jensen was serious about cutting ties with her. Your wife. No. No. Jensen, help me. You can't do this to me. I was wrong. Help me. Yet, the only response she received was the door being slammed shut before her eyes. After those people left, Jensen felt as though all of his strength had drained from his body. He fell to his knees. So, Emily has been acting all this time. Her parents forcing her to get married was a lie. She said someone was following and harassing her, but that was a lie too, he thought. Just then, he recalled the time when he thought Estella had pushed Emily, resulting in the latter getting injured. At the time, Estella had told him to check the surveillance footage from the security cameras. He began wondering if Emily had lied about the incident too. For a moment, Jensen lost the courage to face the truth. If Emily had pulled some sort of dirty trick, how should he face Estella now? How could he even bring himself to ask for her forgiveness? Still, Jensen felt it wasn't right that Estella had to suffer such injustice. Eventually, he checked the surveillance footage, even though his hands were shaking. Although he had an inkling of what might have happened, he felt awful when he saw Emily showing off the hickeys on her body and trying to drive Estella away with the marriage certificate. His eyes turned red. Yet, what pained Jensen the most was the moment he'd chosen to take Emily's side without even trying to investigate what had actually happened first. If he could return to that day, Jensen would surely throw a punch at that foolish man. He hated himself for being so stupid. He hadn't even been able to see through Emily's facade. It was because of his negligence that Emily had had the audacity to harm Estella. Gradually, he'd pushed Estella further and further away from himself. Jensen grabbed his hair and yanked at it as he broke down in tears. Esty, where are you? I've learned my lesson now. I'm willing to do anything to earn your forgiveness. Yet, The only noise he heard was the sound of Estella dragging along her suitcase and shutting the door behind her as she left the house in the surveillance footage. Suddenly, Jensen's phone rang briefly. A message from his friend popped up on the screen. "I've found out where Estella is." Chapter 17. Ever since she'd interrupted Rowan's confession to Estella, Zoe had been extremely cautious, doing her best to avoid him. She explained, "Rowan's first confession ended with a failure because of me. He's finally getting another chance after all these years, yet I've ruined it again. He probably wants to choke me to death right now." Estella found it amusing. "There's no way he'll do something like that. Zoe, you're his sister. He won't be mad at you." However, Zoe had a grim look on her face. "Esty, it's because you have no idea. Rowan locked himself in his room for 3 whole days after you rejected him back then. Before that, my parents hadn't spoken to each other for years. Yet, my dad came asking for my mom's help with talking to Rowan. Rowan really liked you a lot. All these years, I've never once seen him try dating someone else. Oh. I don't mean to pressure you by saying these things. It's solely up to you whether you want to try seeing him. Even though I'm his sister, I'll respect your decision either way. Well, of course I'd be thrilled if we could become family. Instead of treating me as your senior, you should just see me as a friend. I'll probably have to start calling you my sister-in-law soon." After that last remark, Zoe winked at Estella mischievously and slipped out of the room right away. Estella had a wry smile on her face. She'd completed all the necessary procedures during the last few days and officially joined Zoe's company. In an effort to quickly adapt to her new job, Estella occasionally stayed back and worked overtime to go over the problems she'd encountered during work. By the time she'd finished work that day, it was already dark outside. Truthfully, she didn't feel that tired. In the past, she'd just been an employee working for someone else's company, but she'd be contributing her skills for this business now. She was essentially making money for herself even if she worked overtime. Estella raised her hands and stretched. Then, she took her bag and walked out of the office. As soon as she exited the building, she spotted Rowan, who was standing under a street lamp. Rowan's eyes brightened when he saw her. "Esty, I'll send you home." Estella lowered her head and glanced at her watch. She looked quite surprised when she noticed it was almost 10 p.m. "Have you been waiting here for me all this time?" Rowan's office was quite some distance away from here. It would take around a 30-minute drive to get here. Moreover, it was already late at night. Estella knew that it couldn't have been a simple coincidence that Rowan happened to have passed by their office at this hour. Rowan didn't try to lie about it. He smiled and explained, "Zoe told me that you hadn't left the office yet. I saw that it was getting late, and it isn't safe for you to go home alone at this hour. Since I was free, I decided to wait for you and send you back home." Estella didn't reject his offer. When she sat in his car this time, her thoughts and feelings were completely different from the last time. She was no longer so tense and nervous. The two of them even chatted leisurely during the drive. Rowan was very pleased to see the change in her attitude. He wanted to chat with her a bit longer. Yet, he cut the conversation short when he noticed her yawning and looking exhausted. "You should rest for a bit. I'll let you know when we get there." Estella responded softly. She was only planning to close her eyes and rest for a while. In the end, she somehow dozed off at some point. By the time she woke up, Estella found herself staring into Rowan's eyes. The two of them were so close to each other that she could even see her own reflection in his eyes. Her heart raced. Rowan lowered his gaze and looked at her lips. Then, he backed away. His voice was deep and slightly strained. "I noticed you fell asleep, and I tried to unbuckle your seatbelt so you could sleep more comfortably. But I accidentally woke you up instead." Estella dropped her gaze and nodded quickly. It's pretty late. You should head home now. See you tomorrow." Estella fumbled to unfasten her seatbelt. Then, she opened the car door and got out immediately. The corners of Rowan's mouth lifted as he watched her from inside the car. Feeling the night breeze on her face, Estella eventually calmed down. Frankly, she didn't dislike Rowan. She even felt rather apologetic toward him because of what had happened in the past. Still, that wasn't enough reason for her to start a new relationship so soon. She decided to just take her time and go with the flow. That thought made her feel much more relaxed. When she got out of the elevator, Estella spotted a hunched figure crouched down by the door of her unit. She recalled the memories of Mike ambushing her and holding a blade to her neck immediately. Goosebumps rose on her skin. She instinctively turned on her heels and tried to flee. Yet, the man pulled her into his arms the next instant. Esty, I finally found you. Chapter 18. Estella came to her senses when she heard that familiar voice. Still, the psychological trauma caused by the harrowing experience made her break out in cold sweat. Her face went white with terror. Jensen didn't notice the signs of her discomfort. He thought that she was still mad at him. He rambled on, hoping to reconcile with her. I was in the wrong. I've made all the necessary arrangements for our wedding. I also bought the wedding dress you chose. Let's get married when we get home. Estella gritted her teeth and shoved Jensen away. She raised her hand and slapped him hard across the face. Jensen Moore, I made myself clear the last time we spoke. We're over. What the hell are you doing here saying these things to me? Estella couldn't understand what Jensen was thinking. He and Emily had already gotten married, yet he was asking her to tie the knot with him now. It sounded like he was planning on having both her and Emily as his partners. As the thought struck her, she found it utterly revolting. With an icy expression on her face, she took a step backward. Jensen felt a sharp pain in his chest as he took in the impassive look in her eyes. He explained in a cracked voice, Esty, can we not break up? It was because of my poor judgment that Emily found an opportunity to hurt and slander you. I've realized what I did was wrong, and I already kicked her out of the house. Won't you come home with me? Estella furrowed her brows in disdain. If you truly realized what you did was wrong, how could you even think of coming to see me now? What made you think a simple apology from you would make me forget about everything you put me through and go back with you? Estella had always been very gentle during the 6 years they were together. Jensen felt inexplicably dejected when he noticed the barely veiled contempt in every word she uttered. Esty, you can't possibly be so cruel to me. I was tricked by Emily. I was only trying to help her. You have to believe me. I've never been intimate with her. She made up those lies to trick you. I didn't lay a finger on her. Jensen naively assumed that Estella refused to forgive him because she thought he'd crossed the line with Emily. So, he eagerly tried to prove his innocence. Estella scoffed. You were only trying to help her. Did you manage to fool yourself as well after repeating those excuses way too many times? You two got married and took wedding photos together. You even let her move into your house and stayed with her in a room for an entire night. Do these things not count as being overly intimate? Does it only count as an affair after you've slept with her? Estella's tone was so calm, it sounded like she was just having a casual conversation with someone. Yet, Jensen's expression slowly hardened with every word she said. Jensen, can you really say for sure that you never had any impure intentions when you did those things? Can you vouch that you never developed any feelings for Emily during those times? Jensen averted his gaze, looking rather flustered. He opened his mouth but failed to come up with a retort. Estella's words had struck home. Jensen couldn't deny that he'd almost lost his restraint the moment Emily had kissed him. If he hadn't spotted Estella out of the corner of his eye, he might have taken it a step further with Emily that night. Still, Jensen felt he'd merely experienced the most common physiological reaction at that moment. Right. That's just a normal physiological reaction men would have. Any man would react the same way I did if a woman threw herself at them. Besides, I didn't go all the way with her anyway, Jensen thought. He regained his composure at that point. Esty, I made a few mistakes in a moment of weakness. Still, you're the only one I've ever loved. Please give me a chance. Let's start over, all right. He reached his hand toward Estella, trying to pull her into his embrace again. Suddenly, someone stuck their arm between the two of them, effectively stopping Jensen from touching Estella. What are you trying to do to Esty? It was Rowan. With a stern look on his face, he shielded Estella from Jensen with his body. Perhaps it was because they were both men. Jensen could tell with just one look that Rowan liked Estella. Anger rose within him. An outsider like you has no right to meddle in me and my girlfriend's business. Get lost. Rowan didn't budge. He retorted monotonously, as far as I know, Esty's currently single. Who are you to call yourself her boyfriend? Jensen's anger flared up when he heard those words. He knew Estella well enough to know that she wouldn't easily disclose her personal matters to people outside her close circle of friends. Jensen tried to suppress his anger. He turned his gaze toward Estella and asked, "What's your relationship with him? You've gotten close to another man when it's only been a few days since you moved to Arnbert. Do you not feel guilty about it?" Estella's next words rendered Jensen speechless. And under just what capacity are you questioning me now? As Emily Blanchard's husband? Jensen's face turned pale. He knew that he'd never be able to get Estella back if he didn't take care of that issue first. He cast a spiteful glance at Rowan, who stood next to Estella. Esty, give me some time. I'll settle things between me and Emily. Then, I'll come and take you home. He clenched his jaw and strode off. Chapter 19. Estella finally relaxed after having a glass of warm water. If Rowan hadn't shown up just now, she probably would have been at a loss for how to deal with Jensen pestering her to go back with him. Yet, she was also puzzled why was Rowan here when he should have left earlier. Rowan seemed to have noticed the confusion on Estella's face. Pulling a phone out of his pocket, he said, "Someone forgetful happened to have left her phone in my car." Estella blushed when she saw the familiar phone case. She quickly took her phone from him. "Thank you, Rowan." She wasn't just thanking him for bringing her phone but also for helping out with the situation earlier. Rowan smiled. "You're welcome. You can relax and be a bit more casual with me. Are you free tomorrow? Can I treat you to a meal?" Estella paused briefly and avoided his intense gaze. She said slowly, "Rowan, the man who just left is my ex-boyfriend. I already broke up with him, but you saw his attitude. So, I'm not planning to start a new relationship anytime soon." Estella made herself pretty clear. She wasn't a fool. She could tell Rowan had feelings for her. But she couldn't reciprocate his feelings at the moment. Jensen had always been very stubborn. Estella didn't want to risk dragging others into her problems before she ended things cleanly with him. However, Rowan showed no signs of wavering. He offered Estella words of comfort in a gentle tone. "Don't worry, Esty. Even if you eventually decide to reject me, I should still look out for your safety since you're Zoe's and my friend. So, please don't refuse my help. You should get enough rest tonight. You have me, and I won't let him hurt you." Estella's lips curved into a sincere smile. "Thank you, Rowan." Rowan's ears turned red when he heard those words. He hurriedly excused himself. Perhaps it was because of Rowan's words of comfort, or maybe it was the firm look in his eyes. For whatever reason, Estella managed to have a good night's sleep. The next morning, she headed out for work as usual, only to run into Rowan just outside her building. When she noticed his slightly disheveled hair and how he was wearing the same shirt that he'd worn last night, a bizarre thought occurred to her. "Did you stay here the entire night?" Rowan nodded calmly. "I was worried your ex might try to harass you again. So, I waited around for a while. In the end, I got a bit too lazy to head back. I decided to just sleep in the car since I'd be able to drop you off at work in the morning. Estella pursed her lips. Why didn't you just come up and stay over at my place? Rowan froze for a second. There was a flash of embarrassment in his eyes. He averted his gaze. You were home alone last night. Although he didn't say it outright, Estella understood what he meant. Zoe hadn't been home last night since she was away on a business trip. Rowan had wanted to respect Estella's personal space, so he'd chosen to sleep in the car instead. She couldn't quite describe the feeling rising in her heart. It was as though her still and lonely heart was slowly being filled by warmth. Rowan glanced down at his watch and opened the door to the front passenger seat. Have you had breakfast? It's still early. There's enough time for us to grab breakfast before I drop you off at work. Estella had been planning on grabbing something light at one of the places near her house before heading to work. She nodded upon hearing his suggestion. After they had breakfast, Rowan drove Estella to the office. Esty, I'll pick you up when you get off work. As if he was afraid of getting rejected, Rowan drove away right after saying that. Estella let out a chuckle when she saw the anxious look on his face through the car window. She lowered her head and typed a message. All right. I'll be waiting for you. Chapter 20. For an entire week, Jensen didn't show up in front of Estella again. Naturally, it made her feel much more relieved. She knew there was no way he'd ever cut ties with Emily. Even after she'd nearly died at Mike's hands, Jensen had been so affected by Emily's tears that he'd chosen to be by her side instead of Estella's. Estella had left, just like Emily had wanted. There was no way Emily would let Jensen abandon her that easily. All she'd probably have to do was shed a few tears, and Jensen would forgive her right away. Then, those two would live happily together for the rest of their lives. While Rowan was happy for Estella that Jensen seemed to have given up harassing her, he couldn't help feeling slightly gloomy at the same time. After all, he no longer had an excuse to drive Estella to and from work. Truthfully, he cherished the times when they got to be alone very much. He could sense that Estella was slowly warming up to him, and their interactions felt more and more natural. That was enough for him. Just then, the sound of a notification on his phone snapped him out of his reverie. He looked down and noticed it was a message from Estella. Let's grab dinner together. Zoe recommended a new restaurant to me. We should go and try their dishes. There was a hint of delight in Rowan's eyes. He agreed to the plan without any hesitation. On the other hand, Estella couldn't help smiling when she saw Rowan's reply. A week later, Estella attended a press conference as their company's representative. On the way to the venue, her temples throbbed now and again. For some reason, she felt a sense of foreboding. Rowan noticed that Estella looked different from her usual self. He furrowed his brows and asked, "What's wrong? Why do you look so tense?" Estella kept silent. A brief moment later, she pursed her lips and shook her head. Yet, it didn't dispel Rowan's worry. You can skip the press conference if you're not feeling well. It's not like this press conference is of monumental significance. Estella smiled slightly. It's all right. I just feel a bit queasy. This is my first time attending an event as our company's representative. I don't want to give up the opportunity so easily. Seeing Rowan's furrowed brow, she tried to reassure him. I'll excuse myself and leave earlier if I feel worse, all right. Rowan gave a sigh of relief upon hearing those words. All right. I'll stay around to keep you company. You can call for me if you need anything. Estella hummed in response. After they arrived at the venue, she was led to her seat by a staff member. The event commenced shortly afterward, and she gradually relaxed a little. Halfway through the press conference, a woman in a disheveled state barged into the room. While everyone was baffled by the commotion, the woman ran toward Estella and knelt before her. I beg you, Ms. Hart. Please give me my husband back. Chapter 21. It was only after she heard that familiar voice that Estella finally recognized the woman before her, Emily. She had no idea what Emily had been through in the past 2 weeks. The latter had lost a lot of weight and looked sickly pale, making her red eyes stand out even more. Emily clutched onto Estella's sleeve and sobbed, "Miss Hart, can you please stop seducing my husband? I'm begging you. Please don't break my family." The others were in a state of shock. Meanwhile, the reporters who were at the press conference could tell that the incident could potentially be a sensational scandal. They swiftly pointed their cameras at Estella and Emily, who knelt on the floor. Some of them were even thinking of going up to the pair right away to get exclusive information before everyone else. Indignation. She pulled Emily's hand off her sleeve frigidly. "Emily Blanchard, stop it with that nonsense. Jensen and I already broke up. Also, he and I dated for 6 years. You know better than I do which of us he cheated on." Angling her face so the others wouldn't see her expression, Emily shot Estella a menacing grin. "So what? I have our marriage certificate. I'm Jensen's legal wife. What evidence can you show us to prove your claims?" During the past 2 weeks, the Conways had ordered Emily around like she was their maid. Since Emily had no money to pay them back, the Conways had decided to make her do all their chores instead. Rachel would constantly criticize Emily no matter what she did. She would also hit and yell at Emily every time she thought about Mike, who was in prison. As for Mike's father, Matthew Conway, he would always try to grope Emily when no one was around. Not only was Emily not getting enough food, but she also had to stay alert when she slept. Her body was covered in bruises. Growing up, Emily had never once been subjected to such horrible treatment. When she'd been on the verge of despair, Jensen had finally shown up at the Conway residence. At first, Emily had thought that Jensen had come to save her. She'd buried her face in his chest and wept miserably, ready to complain about the numerous scars on her body and share her misery. "Jensen, you finally came to save me. Hurry and take me away from here. These people torture me every day. I'm in so much pain." Yet, Jensen had shoved her away. "You got what you deserved. You need to pay for your sins. I only came here today to divorce you." We'd produced the divorce papers and put them down before Emily. "Hurry up and sign it." It had only dawned on Emily at that moment that Jensen would never help her again. In the end, she'd promised to sign the divorce papers on the condition he helped her escape the Conways' clutches. Emily blamed Estella for all the pain and suffering she'd been forced to endure. If it hadn't been for Estella, Jensen wouldn't have had a change of heart. He would have loved and protected Emily for the rest of their lives. Yet, everything was ruined now. It was all because of Estella. Emily fumed, determined to destroy Estella's reputation. Unable to hold back their curiosity, several reporters approached Estella. "Miss Hart, did you try to get in between this woman and her husband like she said earlier? Do you mind answering the question? Was this woman telling the truth? Did you really try to seduce her husband?" Rowan immediately rushed to Estella's aid and signaled the staff members to keep the reporters away. Soon enough, Emily was escorted out of the hall by the security guards. The press conference resumed after that. However, someone had live-streamed the entire incident on their phone, spreading it online. Chapter 22. Estella was backstage at the press conference. She'd sustained a few cuts on her arm when Emily had grabbed her earlier. Offering Estella words of comfort, Rowan applied some simple first aid treatment to her wounds. They only found out the situation had spiraled out of hand when they received a call from Zoe. Somehow, a video of what had transpired during the press conference was circulating online. The video clip had been edited in a very particular manner as well. There was a stark contrast between the haggard-looking, pitiful Emily and Estella, who'd dressed up nicely and was on the stage. The final part, where the frail Emily was dragged out of the hall by the security guards, outraged the public. The netizens sided with Emily almost immediately, sharing angry comments. "We need to bring the mistress down. How dare she act so brazenly? You must have had a poor upbringing for you to be trying to ruin someone's family now. How revolting. That slut. Everyone who attended the press conference should apologize to Ms. Blanchard. That mistress needs to apologize to her too." Rowan tried his best to suppress his anger. He put away his phone and comforted Estella. "Let's go. I'll send you home first. Don't worry. I'll take care of it. I won't let whoever's behind this get away with it." Estella knew now this wasn't the time for her to feel depressed. She followed Rowan and left the venue through a secure passage. Just as they reached the door, they ran into an anxious-looking Jensen. "Esty, it wasn't me. I didn't know that Emily would come here. Please believe me. I had no idea she'd dare slander you like that." Jensen hurried toward Estella and tried to hold her hand. Before he could get close enough, Rowan shoved him away ruthlessly. "How dare you show your face here? If it weren't for you, would Esty have to go through something like this in the first place?" Jensen knew he couldn't refute that. Still, he tried to explain for himself. "Esty, please hear me out. I had no idea she'd pull something like that. You have to believe me." Jensen had felt like a hole had been punctured through his heart when he'd seen the video and spiteful comments online. He couldn't imagine how devastated Estella must have been when she saw those comments. Yet, what he feared more was her misunderstanding that he might be involved in the incident. Estella stared calmly at him. "I know you didn't do it." Jensen lifted his head at once. His eyes lit up. She believed him. Did that mean she'd forgiven him? Jensen was so overcome with emotion that he was at a loss for words. Yet, Estella's next words completely shattered all his hopes. "But you gave her the evidence she's used to slander me. So, you're not entirely faultless in this incident." Then, Estella took Rowan's hand and walked away. Jensen was left standing there all by himself. He opened his mouth, yet he couldn't bring himself to call after her. He could only watch her move further and further away from him. Meanwhile, the netizens' discussion about the incident grew more and more heated. "I'm here to share some juicy info." Estella tagged along when Emily and her husband attended our high school gathering. "I found it rather strange back then with the way those two were looking at each other. I never imagined Estella would turn out to be his mistress. How could a mistress do something like that even when the wife was around? Estella needs to kneel and apologize to Ms. Blanchard." The marriage certificate Emily posted online later on further validated her claims of Estella being the mistress. There were various strong sentiments on the issue. That night, Jensen received a notice from his company. His superior was fuming and had issued Jensen a warning to pack up his things and leave the company if he wasn't even capable of handling his personal matters. Anson had worked tirelessly for 6 years to get to where he was now. He'd never thought he would end up in such a precarious position because of one wrong decision. The sound of his phone's ringtone pulled him out of his reverie. Jensen clenched his jaw when he saw the name on the screen. "Emily Blanchard, how dare you slander Estella? You need to clarify to everyone that she's not my mistress. Otherwise, I'll expose everything you've done to the public." Emily had long lost her rationality. She was determined to risk everything just to smear Estella's name. "Jensen, we're in the same boat now. I'll cooperate with you and clarify things if you're willing to place all the blame on Estella too. It's either your career or your ex-girlfriend. You're a smart man. You know what you should pick, right?" Jensen tightened his grip on his phone. The veins on his temples bulged. Chapter 23. Since that afternoon, Estella had been foiving numerous calls from unknown numbers. Messages with derogatory remarks filled the screen of her phone. She had no problem putting up with these things. Yet, even the company had been affected because of the incident. Some netizens were so angry that they'd even left comments on the company's online account. Fire the mistress. Kick her out. A company that hires a mistress can't be doing proper business. I hope you shut down soon. Estella, that mistress, needs to publicly apologize to Ms. Blanchard. The corners of Estella's eyes turned red as she read those comments. Rowan turned off her phone. Stop looking at them, Esty. I've gotten someone to take care of the issue. You should rest for a few days. There's nothing you need to worry about. Zoe gently circled her arms around Estella. You didn't do anything wrong. Don't be afraid. We'll stay with you and help you clarify the situation. Estella knew how much time and effort Zoe had poured into building the company. She couldn't let these people ruin the company just like that. She wiped away her tears. Then, she steeled herself and began typing out what had happened, starting from the very beginning, how she and Jensen had dated for 6 years and Emily's sudden appearance in their lives. Then, she shared how she'd found out their marriage certificate was fake and how Emily had moved into their house. In the end, she'd chosen to break up with Jensen and leave. Before Estella could press the send button, Zoe came hurrying toward her with a look of delight on her face. Esty, look. Jensen issued a statement. People online are all cursing at Emily now. Stella took the phone from Zoe and read the statement. Jensen stated that Estella was his girlfriend of 6 years. As for the marriage certificate between Emily and him, he shared his chat history, showing when Emily had started sending him messages. It showed her complaining that her family was trying to force her to marry someone she didn't love. She'd even said she was being harassed by a pervert. Jensen clarified that he'd only gotten married to Emily with the intention of helping her out with these problems. Unfortunately, his decision had brought about various repercussions. Emily probably wouldn't have ended up becoming an object of scorn if Jensen's statement had ended there. Yet, Jensen ended his statement by sharing he'd been tricked by Emily as well. He exposed Emily's lies about her family forcing her to marry someone and being harassed. He included the evidence the Conways had provided, showing everyone that Emily had stolen someone else's boyfriend and squandered his money. Jensen made it sound as though he was just another one of Emily's victims. He never said a word about what he'd done wrong. As soon as his statement was released, public opinion shifted instantly. Those who'd been leaving derogatory comments about Estella realized they'd been used. All of them started attacking Emily with even harsher words. On the other hand, some netizens poked fun about how Jensen's story was the real-life version of The Farmer and the Viper. Jensen had helped Emily out of goodwill. Yet, he'd ended up losing his girlfriend and being branded as a cheater. The most pitiful person in this incident was none other than Estella. She'd dated Jensen first, but she'd ended up having her boyfriend stolen and being accused of being his mistress. Doesn't Jensen Moore bear a huge responsibility for how things have turned out in this incident? He said that he was only trying to help Emily. Yet, out of all the things he could have done, why did he choose to marry her? Can he even say for sure that he never had any special feelings for Emily? Estella pressed the like button for that comment. Then, she uploaded the statement she'd prepared, clarifying she'd ended things with Jensen a long time ago and had been in the dark about Emily until she discovered Jensen had tricked her with a fake marriage certificate. After that, Rowan and Zoe filed a lawsuit against the people who'd tried to instigate a smear campaign against Estella. Estella didn't check how things progressed after that. She heard from one of her friends that Jensen became a target of scorn because of her post. Eventually, Jensen got fired from his job since his personal issues had affected the company's reputation. After everything that had happened, Estella figured she'd managed to completely sever ties with Jensen. She never expected to see him outside her building a few days later. Chapter 24. Estella and Rowan were just about to grab a meal together. She lifted her gaze and spotted Jensen. It had only been a few days since they last met, but Jensen looked really haggard. He had bloodshot eyes, and his face was drained of color. He held out a few pieces of paper. Emily has signed the divorce papers, and I'll receive the divorce certificate in less than a month. Esty, Emily and I are no longer related in any way. You'll come home with me now, right? Even now, Jensen was under the impression that Estella had gotten upset and left because he and Emily had actually gotten married. So, he'd spent almost half of his entire savings helping Emily repay her debt to the Conways in exchange for a divorce. As soon as the papers had been signed, Jensen had come looking for Estella, hoping that she'd change her mind and come back to him. Estella frowned and took a step backward. Jensen, I've made myself pretty clear. I don't love you anymore. We already ended our relationship. Regardless of whether you divorce Emily or not, I won't get back together with you. Do you understand? After a short pause, she cast a sideways glance at Rowan, who stood beside her, and held his hand. Besides, I've started a new life here, and I have someone I like now. Please stay out of my life after this. Jensen was momentarily stunned. He looked at Estella. Then, he glanced at Rowan. It took him quite some time to process and understand her words. His lips twisted into a bitter smile. You shouldn't joke about these things. You love me so much. There's no way you'll fall for someone else that easily. Esty, stop being stubborn. We should reconcile. Ms. voice cracked by the end of his last sentence. He had a desperate, pleading look in his eyes. Estella let out a weary sigh. She couldn't understand why he was being so persistent about getting her back. Was it because he loved her? But if he did, why had he done all those things with Emily? Estella couldn't figure it out, nor was she interested in dwelling on the issue. Jensen, stop lying to yourself. You know how I won't change my mind once I've decided on something. I used to like you, so I loved you with all my heart. But I don't love you anymore. Nothing you do will change that. Jensen's expression turned somber almost instantly. It was as though his soul had left his body, leaving only an empty shell behind. Estella paid no mind to him and walked away, holding Rowan's hand. When they got further away and could no longer see Jensen, she tried to let go of Rowan's hand. But he held her hand firmly. Esty, did you mean what you said earlier? Estella paused for a moment before realizing what he was talking about. A thought hit her as she took in Rowan's reddened ears. She furrowed her brows and acted clueless. What? I don't remember what I said earlier. Rowan panicked. You held my hand and said that you have someone you like. Esty, don't lie to me. Rowan's voice was a little shaky. He was probably overwhelmed by the emotion. Still, he fixed his gaze on the woman he loved dearly. Estella noticed how the usually calm and composed Rowan seemed helpless and nervous at the moment. She smiled and lightly swung their hands, which were still clasped together. All right. I won't lie to you. I really like you. Rowan's eyes lit up the instant he heard those words. He couldn't hold himself back and pulled Estella into a tight embrace. Esty, I love you. He'd fallen for her at first sight back in college. Even though they hadn't seen each other for 6 years, his feelings for Estella had never diminished. No one knew that Rowan had flown back to Strensted one day before Estella's birthday every year. He'd stayed outside her building the entire night just to wish her happy birthday, despite never getting any response in return. He'd thought he'd probably live alone for the rest of his life. Fortunately, the heavens were merciful to him. He finally regained the most precious thing he'd once lost today. Rowan would never let go of her hand again. Estella leaned against Rowan's chest and listened to his loud heartbeat. She subconsciously held him even tighter. Chapter 25. The next morning, Zoe stood by the window and beckoned Estella over. Esty. Esty, look. Is that Rowan? Estella stopped in the middle of brushing her teeth. With her toothbrush still in her mouth, she walked over to the window and looked down. She immediately spotted Rowan, who was standing outside the building with his back straight. For some reason, she suddenly felt a bit shy even though she knew he couldn't see her from there. Zoe tutted and smirked, saying, "He's such a devoted lover. He came here so early in the morning to see his girlfriend. Esty, what kind of training did you give him? You have to teach me your methods someday." Estella's face flushed scarlet. She hurriedly changed the topic. "Zoe, you should join us for breakfast. Then, we can head to the office together." Zoe picked up a bag with a loaf of bread from the table. Then, she took a big bite. "I'm not interested in being the third wheel. You two can go ahead. I have to take care of a few errands in a while anyway." Estella didn't try to persuade her any further. She quickly washed up and hurried downstairs. She even ran a little before she stopped before Rowan. "How come you're here so early today?" Rowan stared at her intently. "I woke up pretty early. Since I was free, I came here to see you." Truth be told, he hadn't slept a wink all night. It wasn't that he wasn't tired. He didn't dare fall asleep. He was worried he'd wake up to find that everything that happened was just a figment of his imagination. So, he'd come here and waited before the sun was even up. He'd wanted to see Estella sooner and confirm that everything was real. After they had breakfast, Rowan dropped Estella off at the office. Estella's good mood was completely ruined when she ran into a man by the company's entrance. "Hello, Ms. Hart. I'm Jensen's friend, Carter Wilkinson. He got into a car accident recently. I wanted to ask if you could pay him a visit at the hospital. You two dated for many years. You wouldn't actually be so cold-hearted toward him, right?" Even though Carter kept his tone courteous, judging by the look of things, he probably wouldn't leave if Estella refused to go to the hospital with him. Her personal matters had already affected the company's business and reputation once before. Estella just wanted to settle this issue once and for all now. "All right. I'll go to the hospital with you." Carter breathed a sigh of relief. At first, he'd thought that Estella was set on breaking up with Jensen. Now, it seemed to him that she'd probably regretted her decision all along but couldn't bring herself to give in first. He assumed she'd just been waiting for an opportunity to get back together with Jensen. On the way, he nagged Estella incessantly in an attempt to brainwash her. "It's normal for couples to quarrel now and then. You can overcome any issues together if you just put your heart to it. There's no need to make things so awkward between the two of you. It's not easy to maintain a relationship for so many years. You should cherish it." Carter kept rambling the entire time, hoping to persuade Estella to reconcile with Jensen. Estella, on the other hand, didn't say a word. She simply looked out of the window and admired the view. When they entered the ward, Jensen was lying in bed, staring blankly at the ceiling. His eyes brightened the moment he saw Estella. "Essel, I knew you were lying to me. There's no way you'll fall for someone else. Let's get married once my injuries are healed. I'll be good to you from now on." Unfortunately, Estella shattered his hopes the next instant. "When did I ever say anything about marrying you? If I remember it correctly, you and Emily aren't even officially divorced yet. Jensen, I only came here to tell you to stop bothering me. I have a new life now, and I don't want to be involved with you in any way." Without the slightest hint of hesitation, Estella turned around and stepped toward the door. However, Jensen's friends quickly moved and blocked her path. Even though Jensen married Emily, he never actually slept with her. "Why do you have to be so fussy about it?" "That's right. Besides, Jensen even lost his job when he tried to help clear up the misunderstanding for you. He almost lost his life during the car accident this time. Does it not prick your conscience? You should just forget about those things that are already in the past." It was the first time Estella felt like she fully understood the phrase "birds of a feather flock together." She suddenly understood how Jensen had even had the nerve to ask her to forgive him after doing all those absurd things. It was because these men didn't see anything wrong with what he'd done. She decided there was no point in being courteous since no amount of reasoning would get through to them. I could agree to your request. However, I have one condition. Jensen's eyes turned red as he was overcome with emotion. He hurriedly said, I'll do anything if it means you'll agree to marry me. Estella's lips curled in a mocking smile. All right. Then, you should come and see me when I'm planning to get married for the second time. Perhaps I'll consider marrying you then. Before Jensen could say anything, the other guy's expressions hardened. Are you out of your mind? You want Jensen to be the husband for your second marriage. How could you even make such a shameless request? You should just take the opportunity to reconcile with Jensen. You'll only end up embarrassing yourself if the situation gets out of hand later on. Forget it, Jensen. I'll introduce you to another lady. This woman can regret it all she wants. Estella scoffed. It turned out they did realize it was shameless to make such demands. Yet, they'd brazenly demanded she forgive Jensen when he'd done the very same thing. She turned around to leave, but she'd only taken a few steps when she heard Jensen's rough voice coming from behind her. I'll do it. Chapter 26. Everyone in the ward was briefly stunned. Jensen's friends exchanged a few glances among themselves, looking shocked and bewildered. Jensen, have you gone nuts? Why would you agree to a condition like that? Jensen simply ignored them and stared hard at Estella's back. Esty, I promise that I'll wait for you and Rowan. He paused for a moment. It seemed like it was really difficult for him to say it. Eventually, he muttered through gritted teeth, to get married and divorced first. I'm willing to wait for you for the rest of my life if it means I can get you back. Estella couldn't understand. What was the point of him acting like he was deeply in love with her when it was already too late now? How disgusting. She left the ward right away. Jensen could wait for as long as he wanted. There was no way she would go back to him even if she divorced Rowan. A year later, Rowan proposed to Estella in front of everyone during his company's celebratory party. Dressed in a suit, Rowan got down on one knee and held up a diamond ring. He'd carved the diamond himself. It sparkled brightly under the lights. Esty, I love you. Will you marry me? Rowan was the one asking the question, yet he was also the person who got emotional and teary-eyed first. Estella smiled and helped wipe his tears. While others were cheering and giving them their blessings, Estella kissed Rowan on the lips. Yes, I will, Rowan. Rowan looked like an army commander who'd just fought in a war and won. He was so thrilled that he lifted Estella in his arms. Their friends gathered around them and hollered in their excitement. Meanwhile, Estella wrapped her arms around Rowan's neck. She was so shy, her face had turned red. Back in Strømsted, Jensen was meeting several business owners in a private room when he heard about the news. He'd lost the job he'd worked so hard for years to secure because of Emily's stunt at the press conference. Now, he had to start all over again. To secure the deal, he had no choice but to down all the glasses of alcohol the business owners offered him. He got home wasted every single day. Yet, no one would be waiting late into the night for him to come home and prepare a hangover cure for him anymore. With a blank, confused look on his face, Jensen asked, "What did you say just now, Mr. Clark?" Jeffrey Clark and Rowan were longtime friends. Jeffrey was aware of what had happened between those three people. That day, he felt like helping Estella get revenge. Jeffrey smiled. I said that Mr. Rowan Olsen from Ainbert proposed to his girlfriend and is about to get married. He even cried because he was so overwhelmed with emotion. Come. We should make a toast and wish for the couple to stay together for many, many years to come. Jensen didn't register anything else after he heard that Estella had accepted Rowan's proposal. He raised his glass mechanically and finished his drink in a gulp. Suddenly, he coughed up a mouthful of blood and collapsed onto the floor. By the time he regained consciousness, Jensen found himself lying on a hospital bed. Tip stopped seeing his friends who used to badmouth Estella. The only person who remained by his side now was his childhood friend, Nathan Lowe. Have you woken up? Do you want to have some water? Jensen shook his head expressionlessly. Nathan couldn't exactly describe how he felt as he took in the blank look on Jensen's face. From the beginning, he'd warned Jensen to cut off all contact with Emily and focus on his own life. Yet, Jensen hadn't listened to him. Nathan knew very well that Jensen only had himself to blame for how things had turned out right now. Still, he couldn't help sighing after watching his childhood friend get so thin and dispirited in just a year. Nathan tried to give him earnest advice. Jensen, you should just forget about Estella. She was trying to mock you by saying those things. He knew all too well that Estella had simply meant to mock and ridicule him. Yet, he had no other choice. He could only hold on to this one opportunity. It was the only thing that gave him some form of hope to continue living. Countless nights, Jensen would recall the days he'd spent with Estella. If he hadn't done something so foolish back then, they would probably be married now and have a cute child of their own. Unfortunately, there were no what ifs in this world.